largest wildlife surveillance operation ever. Digital viewers can find out more about the wildlife shown with BBC Eye by simply pressing red now.
Welcome to Bristol. We are totally and utterly live and we're about to go wild in your garden. Oh. Now, this may look like a perfectly ordinary suburban street, and that's because it is, but tonight and for the whole of this week, this will be part of the biggest ever live broadcast of British wildlife. And we've got cameras secreted all around the neighbourhood in various gardens, and particularly in this one, this is what I like to think of as my garden. I would like to think of it as my garden, but it isn't. It belongs to somebody who's designed a fantastic wildlife garden. We have a look at the picture here on camera 3. You can see lovely ponds, cameras hidden over there. I'll tell you more about them later. Let's have a little bit of wildlife on number 13. Cut to our robin. Look at that. She's sitting on eggs. We're finding out more about that later. And let's cut to number 6. We're going to number 6. Family of blue tits. Family of blue tits. Isn't that lovely? Now, I thought that I had a lot of screens. I thought they'd give me, as the oldest presenter, the most screens. But no, there's some young whippersnapper over there who's got a lot more than I have, and I'm not happy about that. Kate?
Thanks, Bill. Well, yes, I'm in the lodge, but I like to call it mission control because look at all my screens. Isn't this absolutely fantastic? We've got cameras all over the place, as Bill said, and they're all being fed back into here, and we've been monitoring them 24 hours a day, so we'll get you top animal action. The Dean here is where Bill is, and we can see his blue tits and everything there. If we move over to this one, this is the drive, which is where Simon will be, but he's not there at the moment because he is at the avenue, just in the middle here. And you are there, aren't you, Simon?
Hi, Kate. Yes, absolutely. Welcome to another ordinary garden at first glance, but with some extraordinary tenants. There's a badger set spread across the bottom of a few gardens here. That's just one of the entrance holes, and we'll be keeping a close eye on them throughout the evening, indeed throughout the week. We've got cameras set up around a few gardens here, looking at bird tables, looking at mammal tables, and indeed looking inside another blue tit nest. The family in there is a little bit more advanced than the one that Bill's watching. The badgers, though, they're notoriously elusive and they're likely to come out after dark, so to make sure that we get a good view of them, we have infrared lights, invisible to us, invisible to the badgers, but very visible to our infrared cameras stationed here, and indeed on another badger family not far away. I'll be looking at them later in the programme. Bill.
Thank you, Sophie. You see, live it may be, but effortlessly slick because we rehearse. Now, unfortunately, though, you can't rehearse wildlife. I mean, it's no good saying, hey, family of blackbirds, we'd like you on the lawn at 8:15, practice your song, and you might get a series. You can't do that. They're just not going to do what you want them to do. They do what they want to do. They have minds of their own. Which brings me to Kate Humble.
Thanks, Bill. Now, these cameras have been put in over the last few days, but some of them have literally gone in this afternoon. So
yeah,
we're hoping for some surprises, aren't we, this evening?
We are, yes. I'm not sure. It's getting a bit late for surprises because birds get dozy just like everything else. There's not a lot going on in the avenue, though, is there?
Oh, no, hang on, Bill. Camera 3 at the drive. Have we got some movement there? Have we got a badger?
You've got a badger.
Oh, that's now, isn't this quite early for badgers? Just gone 8 o'clock?
No, we told them. Yeah, it is actually. It is early. You're absolutely right. I've sat waiting for hours for badgers until about 10 o'clock, very frequently. It's because it's a fairly dark evening, I think. It's not exactly beautiful weather out there. We'll be going back to that.
Incredibly exciting, we will. And let's just have a quick look at your blue tits, because I wanted to ask you, if we can look at camera 6 and the Dean, I wanted to ask you, why have they got these sort of clown mouths? They look like they're holding bananas.
Well, if only, they'd love a banana, I'm sure. That's to show the adult when she comes in, or he comes in, both the male and female feed. exactly where to put the food. It's as simple as that,
like
because it's dark in there. So actually in a nest box, it's lighter than it probably would be if they're in a hole in a tree, where it's really, really dark. So imagine that luminous mouth going doing like that. And it's called the gape. That is actually called the gape. And when
so
the birds...
it's like a signalling device,
Well,
basically.
it's like sort of there's my mouth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't see them. If they had black mouths, they wouldn't know where to put the food. It's as simple as that.
And do they lose that when they fledge?
Eventually. Usually you can tell a young bird, even if its plumage is much the same as an adult, when it's fledged, it will still have that little bit of gape there. Anyway, we've got a very happy family here at the moment, but it hasn't always been like that. And in fact, we've had our cameras out for, I think it's a couple of days already. So we're in a position to show you some of the highlights, the daytime highlights. So let's have a look at those, shall we? Daytime highlights. What have we seen so far? This is all in my garden. No, not, I wish it was my garden. All in the Dean, isn't it, lovely garden? That's a young green finch, because you've got cameras on all the feed. Oh, this is feeder cam, so you've got a real close-up here. There's a little tiny camera in the feeder, and that's adult starling. There should be some youngsters around soon, and you'll be able to spot those when they're browner. Collared dove. It's amazing. These are all over the flipping place now. I remember seeing the very first ones in Norfolk, in Britain, in 1950-something, and now they're absolutely everywhere, collared doves. Blackbird having a bath. I think that might be on gnome cam. I'll show them gnome cam later as well. Oh, that naughty squirrels nicking the bird food, and we're going to be talking about that a lot more. There's the robin's nest that's today. That's definitely today, and there she is. There she is. I'm pleased to see her, but I'll tell you a bit more about the robin situation later on. And here's our outside of the blue tick. Now this, I have to say, is rather a sad tale. She started off with 5. The weather has been very bad, so that's a low clutch actually. In bad weather, they think there's going to be a food shortage, so they only have 5, or something like that. Unfortunately, 1 died early on. Another one, sadly, only a couple of days ago, and you can see it just at the bottom to the left there. Turn away if you can't take this, because it is really sad. And the body of their brother or sister lay there for some time. Now, that's a bad idea to leave the body in the nest, although it was there for some time, but obviously it was beginning, frankly, to decompose, and that would mean there were fleas and there were parasites and all that kind of thing in the nest, and that's not good for the babies at all. And in fact, they've been sort of pecking away and preening themselves a lot, as if saying, Mum, Dad, we've got fleas, you know, I know it's the brother, but would you mind taking this out of there? And the female tried. That's the female on the right, because she's looking a bit tatty, because she's been doing so much mothering that her feathers are getting really worn. The male, you can see, is brighter, but she's got help from the male. And this is brilliant. He just cannot get it through there. It's sad, and at the same time almost impressive, and that's upsetting me even. That's the... Oh, come on, push it out, push it out, push it out, push it out. So he's pulling, she pushes, and eventually, that's right. So now we've got our 3 little babies, all with their big clown mouths, as you say, looking good. And I think with any luck, they are going to survive, because they have got 2 parents, and that's the main thing at this stage.
And what stage do you think they are?
Fledge.
Are we going to see them fledge this week, do you think?
Well, I think if everybody at home puts their hands together and prays, I think there's a small chance of it. I think there's a small chance. I reckon those birds are about 10, 12 days. And blue tits, small birds like this, tend to be something between 2.5, 3 weeks before they fly, or before they leave the nest, because sometimes they leave even just before they fly. So with any luck, we just might get them to fly if they have any sense of show business and drama and what goes down well on telly. I think they'll fly on Friday. So
okay, we're going to...
The only thing you need to do is keep watching.
Look, Bill, sorry to interrupt you. on 3 in the drive, we've got a really good, clear shot of that badger.
That's excellent.
This is fantastic. Do you think he's going to hang around? I mean, this behaviour...
Unless he's scared. It's amazing. I heard Simon earlier on say there was a barbecue or something down there, which apparently there is. Not the badger's holding a barbecue, I presume. But he's obviously... They're very timid creatures. unless they're very used to people, and I don't think these are.
Okay.
So Simon would tell you a
we'll
lot
keep
more
an
about
eye on that. I'm going to chase you out
No,
now.
I'm going to keep an eye on my
Go
blue
out and
tips.
keep an eye on your blue
I'm
tips.
going to-
In the meantime, we would really like to hear from you. Now, you can ask us questions about garden wildlife, about our badgers, or you can send us tips on how you attract animals into your garden. There are 3 ways to do it. You can email us on wildinyourgarden@bbc.co.uk. If you have an interactive television, you can use the red button on your digital remote and select Wild Garden. Or if you're terribly conventional, you can use the phone and call us on 08702 430 520. Calls are charged at the national rate, although mobiles and some networks may vary. The lines, as you can see, are open now, and we are waiting for your call. The other thing we would really like to know is, have you got anything unusual going on in your garden at the moment? Any sort of spectacular wildlife activity? Any mysterious goings-on that you don't quite understand? We've got our flying squad camera crews standing by to record the best stories, and we'll be able to show you the results a little later in the week. But in the meantime, let's go over to the avenue and see how Simon's getting on. Where are you, Simon?
Hi, Kate. Yes. I am just coming out of the garden where there's no sign whatsoever of badgers, but I understand that the animal at the drive is still out and about and busy, and I'm so chuffed about that, because this really is quite early in the day to have a badger that's active. There we go. Now let's have a look at him. I haven't had much chance to watch these animals. It looks to me at first glance like it might be an adult male, very broad in the head, and very early indeed. You've got to bear in mind, these are live images, and next door people are having barbecues, partying, doing what they normally do every day of the week, perhaps oblivious to the fact that just yards away, meters away, is this perfectly wild creature. This group of animals, this is the first to show this evening, probably comprises about 10 adults, maybe adolescents thrown in there. We haven't seen any cubs to date. At the moment he's just busying himself foraging. I have to be honest with you, we've thrown a few peanuts around. It's a little bit of a temptation for him to come out, and maybe that's one of the reasons he's... Oh, perfectly clear, he is a male. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. Maybe that's one of the reasons he's out quite so early, because he's come out to pick up some of these peanuts.
What might we expect to see later, Simon?
Well, I hope that during the course of the evening, certainly in the next half an hour or so, and again later this evening at 11 o'clock when we're on air again, we should see more of the community. I'm looking forward to beginning to understand the relationship between one and the next, how many adults there are, how many females there are, and fingers crossed, maybe some cubs. This particular group of creatures, however, we have been watching over the past few days, and just last night we covered some extraordinary behaviour, not just at the drive, but at other locations around our neighbourhood. This may look like a wild garden, but in fact it is the bottom of the drive. It's not a woodland. It does, of course, have very recognisable local inhabitants. But with the cameras running throughout the night, we picked up some of the more unusual visitors. Foxes, and badgers even here. There isn't a set at the bottom of this garden. These animals are visiting to feed, and you can see very clearly the badger's propensity to follow a path. Badgers very often do this, and they'll walk backwards and forwards along the same paths time and time again, wearing a patch of bare ground. This is one of our small mammal tables, although of course it looks like a vast mammal to the camera. It is, however, a wood mouse. Very widespread, this creature. A little bit bigger, this one, a brown rat. Not everybody's favourite creature. I have to be honest with you, a favourite of mine. Very intelligent. And now, back at the drive. These are images that we've gathered with our infrared cameras over the course of last night. Little bit of business. I think that might be the adult male as well, the same guy. We're going to have to give him a name. Digging, preparing the set. Badgers are very busy making sure that their home is clean and tidy. And two of the other animals, narrower faces these, I think they might be females. That certainly looks like a female or a young male. Gorgeous. I can't wait to get down there, to be honest with you. I'm going to be racing across there in just a few minutes. So, Kate, it's over to you.
Thank you. Well, if you'd like to find out more about those badgers and the other animals in our gardens, you can log on to the BBC Nature website. There's also a chance to take a virtual tour of the gardens and watch absolutely fantastic non-stop live footage from webcams in bird feeders and nest boxes. Over to you, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely, I should say so. I'm going to give you a bit of a virtual tour right now. It's just out there, by the way. It is just behind me. That is the garden that all these cameras are on. And if we go to camera 3, which is already up there, you can see what a smashing garden it is. You've got a lovely pond there, and that's full of newts and tadpoles and all sorts of things. And there's one of our cameras. There's our camera, and or our hide, and there's the camera lens, and inside there is Richard. Poor old Richard, he's stuck there. And we've got another camera. This is a good one. Oh, did we? Oh, Richard the name. Oh, it should have been 3, yeah. Oh, all right, well, there's Richard. That isn't Richard. I don't know what the gnome's called, as a matter of fact, but believe you me, there is a camera in there. I don't know exactly where it's been inserted in the gnome, but he is smiling, you can see that. So let me show you Richard, who is in there. There he is. He's in that camouflage thing there, and he's got a camera that he can move round on. But let me actually show you some of our stars. I'll just make sure my blue tits are all right first, if you don't mind. Close-up blue tits. 1, 2, another one at the back. They're looking fine. This is what I want to show you. 13. 13. Go to 13. And there we have a robin sitting on her nest, and I'm glad to go to... Oh, no, we'll leave it there, because that's lovely. She's having a little preen. Story to the robins. That's definitely the female, because the male should be out somewhere feeding a brood which they had only a couple of weeks ago, and the male feeds the brood, leaves the female to go off and start again, which is what she's doing. But this very morning, a cat brought in a dead robin, right? Now, we don't know whether that's her husband, as it were. If that dead robin sadly is her husband, then I'm afraid this nest is not going to happen, because his job really is to come in and feed her while she's sitting on the eggs. We don't know yet, so that's something we want to keep an eye on, and again, fingers crossed for her, please, because if we can find another robin around, it's probably the male, but if he's not, then sadly she is going to starve, and she won't raise her family, and I say she's got 5 eggs under there at the moment. Okay, now, this is, as I said, a very, very special garden indeed. And in fact, they've recorded something like 26, 30 species which come in here all the time. And I say recorded because the people here keep a list of everything. And they also see other birds flying over. So, early this morning, I went out here to have a look and see why it's so good. Apart from the garden itself, it's a wonderful garden in the right place. And that, well, you can't really budget for that, can you? Or maybe you do. You have to buy the house, don't you? That's the garden at the back that we're going to be looking at all the way through the week. And I can absolutely guarantee there'll be masses of birds, but they won't be there the whole time, because birds can fly, I can walk. And out here in the street, this is where a lot of them will spend most of the day. Lots of things singing, and in fact, it's almost better for them out here in the street, because there's lots of roofs and telegraph poles and things like that. Perfect song posts where they can sit up and, well, announce how sexy they're feeling this morning. Oh, a pair of wood pigeons up there displaying. You might see morning consummation here. I like it in the morning, dear. No, she doesn't fancy it. The variety of birds that you get in the garden will depend on the variety of habitats, we have to call them, close by. Greenfinch, song a bit like a canary because it belongs to that family, and emerging onto a playing field. Wood pigeons, and oh yes, the song thrush. Now here's a bird which I think most of us will have read is declining, and indeed it is, but the decline is particularly happening out in farmland, what we think of as the countryside. And in fact, the song thrush's best chance of survival is in gardens. playing fields to the middle of the Malayan jungle. No, not really, of course. This is still in Bristol. Oh, great spotted woodpecker, just to prove we're in the woods. So this is not only an excellent habitat in its own right, but it will act as a corridor for creatures and indeed wildlife presenters to get from garden to garden, because just through here are our other gardens. I can hear a goldcrest singing. A tiny bird, and that song's so high-pitched a lot of people can't even hear it virtually. Little flourish at the end. So, the woods just down the bottom of the garden, which means that woodland birds will no doubt nip into this garden and they feed here and then they go back into the woods. I love that shot of the gold crest. You know, there it is, it's gone, you know, and it was, oh, I want to see that a bit longer. Well, they're very small, they're very fast, very difficult. So there's a little challenge to our cameramen out there. Try and get a decent picture of the gold crest during the rest of the week. One of the things that struck me actually walking around this area was, first of all, how very, very common wrens are, because they were singing absolutely everywhere. I'm sure you saw the wren early on with his little cocktail singing really loud. But unfortunately, how completely absent from this area house sparrows were. So I know this is happening all over the country, including London. Going to go and look for those. And also tomorrow I'm going on a bug hunt to try and convince gardeners that bugs are actually absolutely lovable. And Kate, have we got any questions? Kate?
We have got some questions. You've been phoning in furiously and emailing in furiously. Thank you very much. In fact, emails does seem to be your favourite way of getting in touch with us. But do remember, interactive TV and phone will work too. Bill, little question for you about blackbirds. Stephen Nichols emailed in from Derbyshire. His daughter found a blackbird fledgling. She's feeding it worms and she's wrapped it in shredded paper. Is she doing the right thing?
Shredded paper? Well, it sort of depends how old it was in the first place. Because the first thing I would say is if you do find a bird that's come out of the nest, but it's completely covered in feathers and it can either fly or just begin to fly, don't say, oh, that's fallen out of the nest, it's been abandoned, because the parent will be hidden somewhere around. So I don't know how old this bird is, but it's certainly possible to hand rear a bird. And I believe the best way to feed it, I haven't done it myself, but I know Simon has actually, he was telling me, take a little paintbrush, like a really good quality watercolour paintbrush, dab a little soft cat food on it and feed it with that. Don't force it, tap its beak, it'll open its beak, in goes the food. So it can be done, and you don't have to do it all night either, not like babies, you don't have night feeding.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. Hopefully we'll have time for more of your questions a little bit later. But now on to an animal that people hate, and that's the slug. We don't know very much about them, though, surprisingly, apart from that they're slimy and they eat our lettuces. But we are going to change that. Each afternoon this week on CBBC, a new series called Sluck, Wild in Your Garden, is running a national survey to find out about slugs, and they need you to get involved. They're going to try and solve the mystery of why the great black slug comes in all sorts of colours, apparently. To find out more, tune in to CBBC at 4:35 all this week, or log on to the BBC Nature website. Now, we're going to go over to Simon, who I think has torn across the road to the drive. Simon, are you there?
I am, Kate. I'm here, but the badger we were watching just moments ago has walked off into the woodland. The woodland that I refer to is at the bottom of this garden. We are literally within a stone's throw of where that badger was walking moments ago. Nonetheless, I do have control of a battery of cameras. We have 7 different cameras here, and I have control over the pan, the tilt, the focus, and the zoom of those images. So if there is anything moving on this set, I will certainly be able to see it. We have only infrared cameras at this location. That's why you're getting black and white images, but that means that we'll be able to watch throughout the night, and it's really in those darker hours that we're likely to see much more badger behaviour. I did get the chance earlier, though, to visit another of our gardens where I saw one of the most extraordinary wild inhabitants, a family of foxes. We've had a tip-off that a fox family has taken up residence underneath a garden shed in the back of one of these gardens. My chance to get a close look. Hi, Mrs. Mister.
Cheers, yes.
Hi, Simon King.
Hello,
Have you seen him this morning?
I have, yes. Would you like to come in and see
Is
them?
that okay?
Yes, certainly. more than 20 metres away, a family of foxes playing around in full daylight. It may look like a perfectly ordinary garden shed, but underneath it is a real treasure. A fox family, apparently 2 vixens and 11 cubs, have taken up residence. This is one of the 2 vixens that has settled at the earth. She's carrying a radio collar, which means that her movements can be tracked all over the city. A normal family unit for foxes is a vixen, a dog fox, and a litter of 5 to 6 cubs. But when conditions are good, then it's quite common for family groups to form. I think we're seeing the cubs from just one litter. I understand that there are at least 4 or 5 more underneath the shed, a little younger. The fact that their mother is so calm fills these cubs with confidence. They're free to play without any consideration for their own safety, so long as she's on the lookout. The instinct to forage naturally is already kicking in with these cubs. A great deal of their diet is based on earthworms and other grubs found in the soil. It's extraordinary to think that it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon in an average suburban garden, yet here we are, rubbing shoulders with the wild. In fact, it doesn't get any more wild in your garden.
It really was a tremendous privilege to be so close to those creatures. I hope that we'll be able to catch up with them tomorrow evening. We intend to visit that garden at about 8 o'clock. We'll be on air then, and maybe the cubs will be out and about. I sincerely hope so. Here at the set, no more action just now. I believe that we're going to see a great deal more a little bit later in the evening. So when we get back at 11 o'clock, I should have something to show you. Bill.
Thanks for reminding me, Simon. 11 o'clock, I was just off to the pictures, but I should be back in time. Right, actually, 11 o'clock is after the watershed, so it might get a bit heated, you know, a bit of the Jerry Springers, because we're going to be discussing a topic which really does divide the nation, and it's been in the news this very, very day. I talk, of course, of cats. Whether you love cats or whether you hate cats, there is one thing, well, it's totally unarguable. Cats and garden wildlife simply do not mix. And in fact, the time when they're at the most dangerous, because they are natural hunters that go out nocturnally, is, yes, you guessed it, when you put the cat out at night. So, tonight we're going to give you the chance to have your say, and we're going to ask you the question very simply: should cats be kept indoors overnight or not? And you can vote. We want to hear from you. You can vote via the BBC Nature website. That's bbc.co.uk/nature. If you're watching on digital TV, just press the red button and select Wild Garden. Or you can phone us on 09011 900 040. Calls cost 10p, though we have to warn you that some mobiles and networks may vary. There may be more, but maybe there'll be less. Who knows if you get lucky. The lines are now open, and I rather predict there's going to be some strong feelings. So warn your cat that on 11 o'clock we're going to be talking about them. Ooh. So over to you, Kate. I think we're nearly running out.
Well, sadly, that's nearly all we've got time for today. I've just been sitting here looking at Bill's Robin, 14 on the Dean there, looking very cuddly and kind of cosy for the evening. In half an hour, Nature on Radio 4 will be eavesdropping on the sound of a wildlife garden throughout a day and exploring seasonal rhythms at work.
So please join us again at 11 o'clock tonight. Get your cat votes in, see how our creatures are getting in. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and I can't really believe this one. If you stick around, apparently I'm on again. Bit of nostalgia for me, and I hope for you too. So Wild in Your Garden, next, tomorrow. Later.
And Bill Oddie explains how you can create a wildlife haven for your favourite garden visitors in the June issue of BBC Gardener's World magazine.
There we are.
There we are.
You see that? There's a splash.
Do this with your hands. can't get that long, that'll be an after, please.
It's Steve Coogan at 9, followed by Early Doors at 9:30. Before that on BBC Two, there's more from Bill Oddie.